Okay, so there is the north portal, which we just came in. So this was originally part, if I got my coordinates and maps straight, this was originally part of the church, which would explain the high vaultings and the church bell there. And I'm assuming that was the front, probably entrance, because the main doors are that way, which are usually done in threes in this time period. And across the street was the cardinal's home, or the bishop's home. Not sure which the title would be in translation. It's especially difficult with me not being Catholic. But there's another tower there, the main entrance. And I'm assuming these were filled with pews and things of that nature. Being a convent, there's always a church attached, and the courtyard is where those trees are at, which slopes and terraces down. So continuing on with the tour, we were walking through, I guess the pew section in the nave would have been up there. So we're walking around. It's a part of the National Historical Registry now. But, yeah, one can't help to think of what it had been like when it was occupied and being used as a working convent. So we're going along the pathway here. And I'm guessing at some point this was covered either by archways as an orangery or something of that nature. And there's a garden wall over there. And this is an open area with once a working well in the middle. There's the outside of the church. As you can see, it wasn't a hugely, a huge convent by means. And this is, you are seeing parts of the Black Forest behind you, the north part of the Black Forest. And it says the convent grounds for the nuns and the residence of the nun. The darkened area is what remains, and the lighter area is what once was. I'll try to get a closer view here so you can see what's going on. There's an ant on there. Yeah, so we just came from the church there. And we're actually standing in this section here, which is described as, the lettering is so faded I can't read it. So parts of this were built in the early to mid 1600s with the designer of Johann Jacob Rischer. There was a couple of designers, but he was the central one. The east and south wings were where the nuns lived, and that had a lot of work done by the architect Peter Thumb. His last name is a finger digit, yes. And the overseer was Franz Beer. I wish the lettering wasn't faded so I could read it better. I'll get a view in here. I'll take some pictures too so that we have stills of all this. And it says here that the well in the middle, which is that there, was used for cleaning and washing and things of that nature. I know from past experience that walking into the living areas is no longer possible, as it the floors and things are missing. And here's a little bit more some more information. There is They mention these stairs, which is the stairs leading into the what are they called? The Freitreppe, which is the free stairs, to the convent grounds. As you can see, this is across a little walkway, which was part of something else, rooms of other natures at one point. And it says in 1100 AD, two sisters, Oda and Hedwigis von Eberstein, started the convent, and there was a fellow convent in Boru and Hoch in the higher Rhine regions, and so that's how it started. And so this convent was actually started in the year 1100 AD. And the Margrave in 1401, under the king's supervision, from Baden, visited here, I guess. And here's some marks of the symbols of the royalty and the nobility that came through here, and either that or funded part of it. And more history starting from the year 1802, and that some of it was repaired or worked on in 1819 and it was started to be worked on some just for stability, I guess. My German is slowly coming along. It's not that sufficient yet, but you get the general idea. There's this really old pretty tree here. I'm not talking about thousands of years old, but maybe 100 years old. I'm guessing. I am no arborist. Some birds just came out of it and knocked a stick down. Apparently they need to mow their lawn or get some goats out here and take care of it. Another view of the Black Forest surrounding it. I don't know if you can see it or not. Oh, you kind of can. Right down there, that little trickle is part of the Elbe River, and they actually do have sheep down there, and they're so cute too. So, oh, and one of them's a goat. They're friends. Frauenalb and Frauenalb. Frauenalb is 2 towns over. Frauenalb actually has an old monastery ruins. They're asking if their sibling convents and monasteries, cloisters. And I suspect during the time of this, of course the Alb was flowing, that they probably did have some livestock for milk, cheese. Oftentimes convents and monasteries had a business. There's some actually very famous monasteries that are still in business. Some of them are still monasteries as well, that are actually very famous brewers. I will put this up here, and as you can see down there, that is actually part of the old ruins. They are old ruins, but part of the old inhabitants, the living quarters of the convent. And there's, if I remember correctly, the kitchen and things were over in that direction. The church, the narthex. But as I was saying, many of the convents and monasteries had either a small business to help keep their funds going, or they were, not often were they strictly just religious dwellings. Many times they had a small building or a small business and or an alms center or a charitable center for orphanages or healing centers. A lot of times, either one of them had bakers, milliners. The monastic side of it had, as I've mentioned, breweries and meat shops sometimes. Metzgereis, as it's called in German. And the women's side, the convents, as I said, had orphanages or um, what do you call that? A young girls, like a finishing school, as part of the convent, where um, more well-to-do families could send their daughters to receive a proper education, so to speak, in that day and time. They also sold things like perfumes, scented oils, or they had either a monastery or a convent had an apothecary shop. The pharmacies of the days are a healing shops, and even before the famous English nightingales became nurses, monasteries, or especially convents, monasteries, had nurses as well for healing and for repair. And now every monastery and convent was different, but they all often had at least one brother or sister in their realms that had at least some healing knowledge, not only for their brothers and sisters alike, but for the community as well. Not always, but generally, as they were there to provide God's services to their people. And that came in oftentimes many ways, shapes, or forms. What I find interesting about this particular convent is I haven't come across, and I'm not saying there isn't one that I just don't know about, I haven't seen a cemetery or a graveyard anywhere in this area. Not to say there isn't one. I'm just simply not aware of it. Oftentimes, around convents and monasteries, you will find a cemetery or graveyard for their sisters and brothers in arms in Christ. Not arms in war, arms in Christ. And there has been proven over the centuries, and it's not just here in Germany, it's worldwide, that some of the convents had a private cemetery or graveyard for the good sisters who went outside of their vows a little bit and had a child. Sometimes the child was placed directly into the orphanage at their own convent or their fellow convent as an abandoned child. Sometimes the nuns left their order altogether. Sometimes, given the time and day and age, the child didn't make it, or they would abort it, unfortunately, and they would bury it in their private cemetery, or in other places. There's many historical documents of such cases, which is unfortunate. Martin Luther was a particular monk who obviously started the Reformation, the whole Protestant movement, and he actually married a converted nun, Sister Mary Catherine, and they ended up having children together. He stayed strong to his faith, but that was one of his points, was that saying, how can a minister, a brother, a servant of God be a counselor to his flock if he doesn't have the experience of having a wife? And where the Bible says, if it is better to marry than it is to burn with lust. So I don't think maybe lust was the first thing on Martin Luther's mind, but it was a factor. So when he was excommunicated and technically hunted for a while by nobility, protected by King Ludwig, not the original King Ludwig, not the one from Neuschwanstein, he did end up marrying Sister Mary Catherine, and they had a family, and which was a scandalous, definitely. Not only with his Reformation, but his own lifestyle. And here is a cellar. It's very dark. Maybe it was used as a root cellar. Maybe it's a coal area. One never knows. But it is in the bottom of the church, so maybe they kept seasonal relics down there. One for Advent, one for Passover. Again, one never knows. Obviously, that pipe is a modern addition. Maybe it's to help keep the underneath drier. And I see these in ruins oftentimes. I don't know if it's shafts for supports. Maybe they put in different floorings or walls, but I see them actually quite frequently. So that is my tour today of the Kloster Frauenalb ruins here in the town and village of Frauenalb.